information. It was
just
leaked.
the publisher.
He was leaked to him.
Okay. You don't think this anymore has anything to do with what you call fabricated rape allegations? In fact, you believe those allegations could be linked to the Afghan war logs, revelations of Anglo-American NATO troops in Afghanistan.
Yes, well, I'm not in a position to, confirm or deny whether there has been some kind of a sexual offense at some point between the women and Julian Assange. All I can say, I've seen in the original Swedish police documents where the women are not claiming to have been raped, but you can see even the woman sitting in the police station sending a text message to a friend saying, I don't want to accuse Assange of anything. I just want him to take an HIV test, but the police wants to get their hands on him. So, I mean, who would write a message like that? Not a raped woman. Then we see a consecutive series of grave violations of due process in the Swedish case. And all of this happens within a month of the publication of the Afghan leaks. So, where the US has asked their allies to initiate prosecutions against Assange wherever possible. So, the choreography of this, how it plays out, and how Sweden actually at no stage in the proceedings really tries to protect the women's interests, refuses to question Assange when he is still in Sweden and offers and actually demands to be questioned. But the day he leaves Sweden and he received written permission by the prosecutor to leave Sweden, they issue an arrest warrant against him for trying to evade justice. So there is a series of contradictions that is clear.
Which was acted upon by the now supposedly leading candidate to take over from Jeremy Corbyn in this country, the then Director of Public Prosecutions, Keir Starmer.
Yeah, I'm not aware of who exactly acted at the time, but clearly that plot then played out to push Assange into a corner where everybody had this image of him, and I was influenced by this image as well in the beginning, this narrative of him being a suspected rapist, being a hacker, being a narcissist, being a spy. And as soon as you scratch the surface a bit of this case, you realize there is nothing to back it up.
Okay, you also discovered a trail that led to Swedish Justice Minister Thomas Bodström, the former Justice Minister, who you claim effectively supervised a kind of rendition, torture, perhaps documented by WikiLeaks, of the kind documented by WikiLeaks.
Well, he was the Justice Minister when Sweden and the security police of Sweden kidnapped two people that were registered asylum seekers in Stockholm and handed them over to CIA without any due process, and they were immediately ill-treated on the airport territory and then flown to Egypt, where they were tortured and detained arbitrarily. Of these two people, we know because they survived. Both of them filed complaints with the United Nations, and Sweden was obliged to pay them, I think, each of them about $500,000 in compensation.
Well, so you think that the guilt, when the rape allegation was used to smear Assange, it was an admission of guilt on the part of Sweden when it dropped all the allegations?
Well, I would say...
Or dropped the suit against him?
Well, they admitted that they never had any evidence that was sufficient to even press charges against him. 5 days later, the leading prosecutor of Stockholm closed the case, saying, I believe these women, but nothing they said indicates a crime. There could be an explanation, but then I asked Sweden formally in a formal letter, as I'm mandated to do by the United Nations, I submitted all the contradictory evidence to them and said, please make sense of this. Explain to me how this complies with human rights law and before I draw my conclusions. And now the first response of Sweden was, you're criticizing the judiciary, which is independent from us, and we're the government, so we can't comment on this. I wrote back to them and I said, please, you're my counterpart, but please transmit my concerns to the judiciary and let them answer to me. On which then they responded in a one-page letter saying, we have no further observations. My experience is where states don't want to respond to my questions, that probably they have something to hide. That was now challenged at the court, and that's why it's with the court. If it had not been challenged, he'd just be extradited.
Although that tends to be just a formality when it's the United States, one of Britain's closest international partner.
Well, I think to be fair, there have been individuals that have not been extradited to the United States by Britain, which I believe is one reason why they wanted to go through Sweden, because Sweden has a track record of extraditing just about anybody to the United States with or without due process. Now, that is obviously off the table with the case being closed in Sweden, and now they'll just go through the British system.
It's a pleasure, Rapporteur. Thank you.
Thank you.
After the break. WikiLeaks didn't only tell us about secrets kept from the masses of the military-industrial